It is a beautiful day out here in the woods, and we're going to do some chainsaw testing. It's one of my things where I think you should have two chainsaws. One larger one for felling trees, dealing with large lumber, and one smaller one for small firewood, quick jobs, something that you just don't want a lot of weight with. You grab on and go. Now what I have here are two of the smaller models, a Stihl 261 and a 362. That to me is the bottom end of where I want to go just for a woods area. There's a lot of money issues when you look at just a little bit more to get a little bit more power, but you add weight, you add a lot of things to it. Where is that balance? Then I have the Stihl 500i, which is one of my newest saws, and the Stihl 661 Magnum. Those two are going to be an interesting test also. That would be two of the higher end saws that I'd be looking at. I'll have all the CCs, the horsepower and everything in the description, so if you're not looking at Stihls, you can look down there and compare them to other saws. Maybe get an idea of what you see from the power, the noise, the torque, all that as they go through. This is going to be quite fun. So we're going to do two tests, one with a smaller end of the log, something that the smaller saws can kind of get into a little bit more, and then we're just going to take the two big saws at the end and go through some of the bigger stuff. We'll do some timing, some tests, and look at it, just kind of see how this lands. Also, we're going to warm all these saws up. That's going to probably be done off camera, so we want to make sure that when we start, the saw is properly warmed up and ready to rock and roll, so trust us that we're getting that right. Also, all the chains that we have on here are brand new, so we are comparing apples to apples. Everything is cleaned up, oiled up, and ready to go. We are cutting through sugar maple, so this is a hardwood, not something that these saws are just going to cut through like butter. They're going to have to work at it. First cut's going to be with the MS 261. We'll go through a couple times, put the times up on the screen. Next up is going to be the 362. Now we'll do the 500i. Now the 661 Magnum. Well, this is the larger diameter of the log. There is a little rot in here, which is why this maple was taken down. So we'll see what we get through. You can see some of the lines in here where it's a little bit punky. So you might hear that in the saw, but I hope it gives us a little bit more wood so we can check out those times. The more we got to cut through, the larger the gap in time should be if there's more power. Let's get after it. All right, let's hit it with the 661 Magnum. So a lot of this test actually surprised me quite a bit because I didn't expect the 261 to be quite that slow. 25.16 seconds going through that log compared to the 362 at 16.46. Now when you look at the weight difference, there's not a whole lot there that's going to be a huge difference. There's a good horsepower difference. Again, all this is going to be down in the description. So when I bought the 261, I was thinking they were going to be pretty close. I just wanted the lightweight portion of that saw. And I did notice I was down on power a little bit once in a while compared to what I thought the 362 had, but I enjoy using that saw and I use it for lighter duty tasks. It's a different chain completely than the 362, and actually the 362 uses pretty much the same chain as the rest of the saws. It's just limited in the bar size. When we got to the 500 and 661, I really expected the fuel injected 500 to outperform the 661. 661 is a 90cc, 500 is an 80cc, but the torque that you feel in that trigger is absolutely intense. The noise that you get out of that saw is much louder than the 661, but it didn't. In all my tests, in the beginning, 500i 11.46 average, 661 8.54. That is a staggering difference in the smaller stuff. When we got into the larger log, that was a tough one because there is some areas of rot in there, and as we cut, the differences were changing. I probably should have switched saw to saw to saw to get closer to what I was, but in the larger one, average 12.51, average 10.34, but when we did the back-to-back cut, we had 9.13 and 10.53. So when we really look at that, our averages are almost identical to those two cuts. we were almost 2 seconds off as far as the 500i going through there. I've seen different videos where the 500i outperformed the 661. I'm not 100% sure as to what's happening here, but I think that this is probably as real as you can get. There are going to be variations in saws, there are going to be variations in wood. I think we kind of knocked that out of the park as far as what you're looking at. Now, the conclusion that I can still come up with here, if I headed over to again, I probably wouldn't own the 661. I was nervous to pick up the 500i as it had just come out when I purchased the 661. The 661 is a little less money, I believe, than the 500i. I'm going to get fuzzy on that one due to time, but the 500i is not an inexpensive saw at all. And if you go with the lightweight bar, it still adds even 50 bucks more on top of that. So when you're looking at these saws, look at the price, but the 500i has proven, per other videos again, per time, to be a good and reliable saw, even though it has a lot of electronics in it. It just seems to want to idle more, and it seems like these more electronics that we get are up to wanting to idle a two-stroke. You see it in motorcycles, you see it in all this stuff. So the 500i likes to be idled. It configures itself to idling. It configures everything as it's going through with the computer and changes things up to fuel, air, elevation, all that stuff. So it's a different kind of saw, but the torque is amazing. So if I had to choose between the two, I'd own the 500i, deal with the 2 seconds slower. If I had to choose between the 261 and the 362, I probably wouldn't own the 261 anymore. I would only own the 362. And then, I hate to say it, but for anything less than what I need on the 362, which is pretty small wood, I would pull out a small battery saw and deal with the little campfire wood that I'm cutting up at that point, not even deal with the gas. With that said, this stuff is still amazing. Tests are just still astonishing to me as far as how some of the saws can be that far apart. And again, all new chains on here. Everything was set up to get to be as fair as possible. So I'm really interested in your comments as to what you think of all these saws, what saw you would choose. Leave that below. Give us a like in this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video around. If you have a friend that's looking, or if you can help us out by sharing this video, we would greatly appreciate that. Thanks again for your time. Have a great day.